that Gray read Jordan's book.
Excellent. And what is this person's reasoning for saying that?
Um, the metaphor is so unusual that there is little chance that two different people independently created it because it came before the before.
Yeah, so we're saying that it's very unlikely that two people could have created it. But why do we think that Gray read Jordan's book? So that's one reason. What else is important to know here? I'm sorry, what were you saying?
One came before the other.
Yeah, so in his book, Gray published his book in 1892, and Jordan used it in her book, was published in 1885. What is the flaw here, do we see? What do you think, Victoria?
I think I don't know what the type of flaw is.
Oh, you don't see the type of flaw. What are we failing to consider? What are we assuming?
He's assuming that just because she used, I don't know there, but just because Gray used the same metaphor, that it's not possible that the book was written independently. Does that make sense?
Right. Okay. You're super close. You're on the right. You're thinking about it right. So you were assuming that. I liked where you were going. You were saying we're assuming that because they use the same metaphor. We're assuming that Gray read Jordan's book. But really, where else maybe could have Jordan learned about the metaphor?
Another book.
A book club. Did you say a book group?
Another book or somebody else?
Oh, I thought you said a book. I was like, yeah, a book club. Yeah, maybe he didn't read the book, but he went to the book club and they mentioned the metaphor. Or maybe someone else read the book and used the metaphor, right? Like other people, like it doesn't mean maybe Jordan, he heard it from someone. That doesn't mean he read it, right? Okay, so that's what we're failing to consider. We're also assuming something. Just because Jordan's book was published in 1892, does that mean that his book was written in 1892? So what are we assuming? We're assuming that it's published this time, but what else are we assuming about these books and potentially these dates?
They correlate to when they were written?
Yeah, in the sense of we're assuming that because Jordan's book was published after or because Gray's book was published after Jordan's book, we're assuming that Gray's book was also written before Jordan's book too, right?
So could you say that maybe Gray had the idea first, but just happened to write the book later?
Yeah, okay, yes. You're one step ahead of us, Angelica.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You're okay. So do we see how like we're kind of assuming that just because one was published before the other, that they must have been written in that order too? So if we were going to weaken it, we want to bring in new information. And a great way to weaken it is to attack one of those two flaws. So for this first flaw that we mentioned, which was that Gray read Jordan's book, what could we say that would make it so that, what new information could we bring in that would make it not likely that Gray read Jordan's book? We kind of already said this a couple minutes ago, but. Yeah, Gray heard the metaphor from someone else. If that was an answer choice, that would be a great way to weaken it, right? All right, and then Angelica, you're gonna do number 2 because you kind of already were on the right track. What could we say bring in that would attack these dates?
I would say that like maybe Gray had the draft first, but Jordan was able to publish their book first.
Yeah, excellent. Because if that were true, then how would we, if Gray wrote her book first, or Jordan wrote, I keep saying the person's names backwards. All right, so go ahead and try this one and put your answer in the chat. This one is a great example of the answer choice was not what we predicted at all. And when I read it, but it was close enough that I kind of went, huh. So let's go ahead and talk about why the wrong answers are wrong first. So B, the passage in Gray's book that employs the unusual metaphor expresses an idea that bears little relation to any ideas expressed in Jordan's book. This one is incorrect because just because there's no like ideas that are in relation, that does nothing to weaken the idea that Gray read Jordan's book, right? It's like just because they didn't correlate doesn't mean he got the metaphor from there. See, both Gray's book and Jordan's books were written for the same audience. We don't care. That has nothing to do with Gray reading Jordan's book. D, Jordan used the same metaphor in a work that she wrote in 1894. Once again, irrelevant, right? Like, cool. And then E, according to most scholars, Gray was generally a more inventive writer than Jordan and developed many original metaphors. Well, just because Gray is an inventive writer and Gray is an original metaphor, does that mean that Gray did not read Jordan's book?
Nope.
No, excellent. All right, so A says a text that was probably known to both Jordan and Gray was published in 1860 and also contained the same unusual metaphor. How does this weaken it, Sumatra?
Because it means that Jordan wasn't first. And so if Jordan wasn't first, so if Jordan wasn't first, then Gray didn't get it from Jordan.
Yeah, like
they could have both gotten it from somebody else.
Yeah, this text is like what we said was the book club, right? Or someone else sharing the metaphor. They both got it from somewhere else. Excellent. And so that's how it's A. Does anybody have any questions on this one? Yes, Angelica.
Okay, so this is my issue with weekend questions, is the language, like it's so weak, like was probably, like A makes the most sense out of all of them, but I did not like it because of just the language, because, you know, weekend is supposed to be like strong, like you're done, no more argument, you know.
No, remember, weekend questions are like strengthened where at the end of the day, it's which one weakens our argument the most. And so, yeah, so we were debating between two. We want the stronger, weaker answer. But unfortunately, out of all of them, this is the only one that even does anything remotely to weaken it.
Okay.
So the first time through on your answer choices, ask yourself, does this weaken it? And if it does, even if it's mild, I don't cross it off right away. But if I'm debating between two, then I want to go with the stronger answer, right?
Right.
So we can't hang on weak wording alone or strong wording alone.
Okay, that's fair. It's just sometimes I'll get weakened wrong because I think the two are better. Like there's two that could weaken the conclusion, but I like to go with the stronger one, but then I end up getting it wrong. So I'm just thinking maybe.
So that's probably a lack of understanding the reasoning.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, that maybe I'm just not.
You're not weakening the right thing then. Yeah, because if you were, the stronger answer choice would be right.
Right, okay.
All right, do y'all want to do another weekend? Excellent. All right, go ahead and do this one all the way through on your own.